To UBC's MBA Career Talk. We're very excited today to have an HR leader, Raymond Two, to give us a little bit of an insight on the Vancouver market. Before we do that, we'll just get through a few housekeeping items. I would like to take the time, I would like to acknowledge that UBC's Vancouver Point Grey campus is situated on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Musqueam people. I would also like to acknowledge that you are joining us today from many places near and far, and acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of those lands. So before we get started, just another look at the agenda. I'll be giving a short UBC MBA overview. We will then pass it on to Raymond to give us his career talk, and then we will have a Q&A session. So in the room today, of course, we have Raymond Two. I will introduce him a little bit later. Myself, Manager, Recruitment and Admissions. I have two colleagues joining me from Recruitment and Admissions, Vivian Tran and Natalie, and they'll be in the background answering the questions that you have. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box, and Vivian and Natalie and my other colleagues in the background will be able to answer your questions. I'd also like to introduce Mary Cowan, who is the manager for MBA careers and really works part and parcel with students and helping them to align their journey through the MBA program to fit their career objectives and to provide that career support that is crucial post-MBA. And myself, if you have any questions or you want to reach out to me or to book an online appointment with me, you'll see that URL, the Go Once Hub URL, and you're more than welcome to choose a time in my schedule to have a one-on-one advising chat. So looking forward to hearing from you all. So just a brief introduction of Raymond. Raymond Two is a senior technical recruiter at Go Recruitment. He's also a chartered professional accountant. He has a BSc in biochemistry and an MBA, both from UBC. Raymond owns two professional service companies named Go Recruitment, which provides recruitment, executive search, and HR advisory services to tech companies in the Pacific Northwest. So we're very, very fortunate to have him here today. And we look forward to hearing what Raymond has to tell us. So I'm just going to go through the MBA program really quickly, and I'll hand off to him. So in terms of some important dates that are coming up, as you can see, our first round deadline is actually tomorrow. So the applications, the deadline is October 20th. The document deadline is on the 30th of June. Our next cohort will begin in August of 2021, and we will end in December of 2022. So it's a 16-month program. So why specifically a UBC MBA? What is it about the UBC MBA that attracts students to us, and in terms of what we provide to our candidates and our graduates? The Global Immersion Experience, which I'll get to in a little bit, is a real-world business consultancy project in which you're tasked of solving a business problem that an international company is facing. Very, very popular component of the program. As you can see, we focus on experiential learning, so we do have that GIE experience. We've got the internship. You also have the opportunity to do either an entrepreneurial project or an industry project. Another pillar of the MBA is, of course, our personalized career development offered through the Business Career Center, of which that's where Mary works. And it's a really strong pillar in terms of positioning our students, giving them that coaching, that support that they need, networking opportunities, and making sure that their journey throughout the MBA is strategically aligned with their career objectives. So a very, very important pillar for this program. We are a member of the top 45 global elites. We're known as #1 in Canada for business and economics, and we have a very extensive alumni network of over 43,000 alumni situated in over 80 countries across the globe. Vancouver, fantastic city, one of the most livable cities in North America and the world, known for having one of the fastest growing metropolitan economies, home to notable companies such as Lululemon, Hootsuite. We also have offices here for Amazon, McKinsey, and Microsoft, and of course, SAP and the city of Vancouver. So getting into the program itself, it consists of 7 periods. We have things like the global immersion experience that I spoke about, integrated case studies, foundation courses, track specializations, which I'll get to in a little bit. But this is sort of a typical, our traditional timeline, beginning in August and finishing in the following year. Now, the MBA is broken down into several components. There are some foundational modules as well as thematic courses as well. So the foundational courses, things like accounting, data utilization, marketing and operations, but we also tend to focus on thematic courses. So things that underpin this entire program, irrespective of the specialization that you choose. Ethics and sustainability, obviously creativity, leadership, and global issues and macroeconomics. So a blend between foundational courses, thematic courses, and of course our specializations, otherwise known as career tracks. So coming to our career tracks, we've got tech and analytics leadership, finance, products and service management, innovation and entrepreneurship, and a custom track. The custom track is really quite exciting in the sense that it allows you to tailor your own progression through this program. Very valuable for those looking to get into consulting. But as I said, it really allows you to tailor your learning to suit those career objectives that you are in pursuit of. Tech and analytics is proving to be quite popular. We have courses, things like data viz, fintech, customer analytics, and so on. In finance, we look at things like investment theory, asset pricing, product and service management, and innovation and entrepreneurship. One has the ability to sort of mix and match this together it's quite flexible in that regard. So it's a way for you to focus your MBA if you so desire, as well as to take a blend of a whole range of courses for the custom track as well, for those of you looking to get into consulting. Yeah, so just some popular courses of things that may resonate with you for those individuals who are interested in our technology and analytics leadership track. Like I mentioned, AI commercialization, machine learning, and in terms of where it can take you, you can see some of the companies that we have listed up here that you can potentially work for, and in what capacity you can work for those companies. So anything from technology consulting to business analysis, process improvement, and so on. Experiential learning, as I mentioned earlier, is a fundamental underpinning of this program. Like I mentioned, the GIE, the Global Immersion Experience, the internship or entrepreneurial project, the capstone project. This is all aimed to give you hands-on, practical, real-world experience that you can use to build up your portfolio and go into the working world in Canada post-MBA. Our internship typically runs for 4 months over the summer periods, between $3,000 and $6,000 in terms of remuneration. Or you can do an entrepreneurial project or an industry project. I'm sure some of you will have some questions for Mary in and around how that is materializing. We look forward to answering those questions as well. One of the signature sort of features of this program that really makes it stand apart, I believe, from our competitors is this global immersion experience, the global outlook, the chance to get international hands-on experience through our immersion experience. And we have in the past gone to several locations. For example, Berlin tends to focus on manufacturing and entrepreneurship. Shanghai, China tends to focus on finance. Tel Aviv and Santiago more on the entrepreneurial side of things. So depending on where your interest lies, that'll also affect potentially where you go to complete your GIE experience. We are also a member of the Global Network for Advanced Management. So this is a Yale spearheaded network. We're the only Canadian school in this network. A network of 30 leading business schools across the globe. And as an MBA candidate, you really have the opportunity to leverage this network in one of three ways. You can do short thematic courses at some of our partner institutions that focus on a specific theme that institution is an expert in. You can do short network online courses, taking classes with students from across the globe at other institutions. And then you can do a formalized exchange, the more traditional exchange where you go over for a semester or so. And all of these opportunities are for credit as well. Just to give you a snapshot of 2019, here are some of the thematic courses that were offered through the network. You can see on the bottom of that list there, UBC Sauder, we focused on sustainability in terms of cities and inclusive property. So that would be our field of expertise. But you can see other schools, of course, would focus on other areas that you may be interested in and that you may want to leverage as part of your academic journey at UBC. So 34 exchange partners across the world, giving you that international exposure, that international experience that is necessary in today's day and age. Moving on to our personalized career coaching offered by the Business Career Center. There's a strong focus on emotional intelligence. So you're put through an emotional intelligence assessment, given an emotional capital report, and based on that report, you can work hand in hand with your career coach to make sure your journey through the program is strategically aligned with your career objectives. We find that this is it's really a good mechanism in terms of making you that much more a valuable employee to the institution that you work for. Deals with things like soft skills, how to manage relationships, how to manage stress and conflict within the workplace, managing difficult emotions, and so on. Those soft skills that are very, very important in terms of your career going forward. Again, just a snapshot of 2019, some of the career outcomes of our class. You can see that 87% of our graduates were employed within the first 90 days of graduation. There's a nice span of sectors here that you can see in terms of securing full-time employment or internships. So across multiple sectors, everything from financial services to tech to consulting, manufacturing, and even the nonprofits as well. And I'm sure some of you are interested in that field. Again, this shows you the range of internships through that year, 2019, where our candidates secured internship, depending on the sector. You can see that as well. Oops, there we go. So in terms of the salary range, you're looking at between 50 and 220,000 Canadian dollars a year. But I wanted to stress that the low 50,000, we also take all the data, we compile all the data from all international countries. And so if someone goes back to, let's say, Mexico or another country where the currency is not as strong, that's still taken into consideration. But it still gives you, I believe, a clear idea of what to expect. Now, the class breakdown, I get a lot of questions as to what is the makeup of the class, like who is in the class? Again, another snapshot, but I think this is fairly accurate in giving you a sense of what to expect. We do have a wide range of undergraduate degree majors. I'm starting to see more people come from the arts, medical backgrounds, the military. So it fluctuates year on year, but generally speaking, this is what you're looking at. Breakdown between male and female is 58 to 42 in percentage. Age range is between 24 to 39, so the average age is around 30. Average years of work experience, 6, and a 46% international cohort. So the important information that you may want to take a look at, this is the brass tacks of the admissions. We are looking for a GPA of a GPA of 3.3, 76% or a B+. Our GMAT scores, minimum GMAT is 550, the competitive is 650. For the GRE, the minimum is 300, and the competitive is 320 and above. In terms of work experience, we're looking at a minimum of 2 years. As you saw on the previous slide, the competitive range tends to go between 3 and 5. We're looking for 2 professional references, ideally from a direct supervisor, someone who knows your work intimately on a day-to-day basis. There are some written and video essays within the application portal for you to complete. And we do have English proficiency requirements if the medium of instruction at your home institution was not in English. And of course, there is a personal interview as well. So the application, I would just say, is a holistic process. We look at the entire profile of the candidate. If you're a bit off in terms of, let's say your GPA is a little bit lower or so, not everything is lost, right? We look for ways for you to redress that imbalance within the profile. So maybe a good GMAT score or a very articulate, impactful, well-written submission in terms of the essays that are required. Strong references as well. So there are other ways to make up the imbalance that you may have with your GPA within reason, of course. So some very important dates. Deadline, as I mentioned, is tomorrow for the first round. We will have an additional round. The next one coming up is on the 5th of January. And just some information about fees. And we do have scholarships available to about 35 to 45% of the class. And they range between the value of 10 and 40,000 Canadian dollars a year. So as long as you adhere to the first round, those first 2 deadlines, and you submit your application on deadline, on time, you will be automatically considered for those scholarships. You don't need to declare it. There's no additional information or paperwork that you need to fill out. As long as you make those deadlines in October 19th and January 5th, as long as you apply by then, you're automatically considered for scholarship. And just some next steps. In terms of reaching out, you're more than welcome to reach out to me at any particular time. If you have a question or if you want to book an advising session with me. We will have some more events coming up. Also, a very good resource is to actually go to some of our past events and look at those resources. Look at the webinars that we've previously had that include some alumni as well, so you can get a bit of a student perspective in all of this. Yeah, so I thank you very much for listening to the first part of this presentation. I'm gonna hand off to Raymond Two. Raymond, are you ready for us?
I am ready. Can everybody hear me? Well, can you hear me okay, Sa?
Yes, I can.
Great. I've been enjoying the questions and the chat. So it's been, there's some funny ones there too. So that's awesome. So I'm going to share my screen shortly, everybody, but wanted to say that I really wish someone could invent a time travel machine. Not because I want to go back in time and capitalize on some market swings, but actually want to go forward. Meaning, like the program you guys are about to enter, it's amazing. I didn't have the quality that I think you guys get now. You guys meaning the incoming students. So I'm jealous, but then also grateful, because if I applied today, I don't think I would get in. There's some really high caliber people who are applying. So good on everybody to do this. So that's my time travel story. So let me share my screen. So Zayu, let me know if I'm doing this correctly. Can everybody see this? I hope they can. How about you, Scott? Just doing a
yeah, I can see your screen. Do you have like a presenter mode, or is that the presenter mode? I guess it is. Yeah,
it is the presenter mode. Yeah, it is actually not ideal, but well, we'll jump right into it, everybody. So hopefully everyone, I speak quickly and I leave lots of time for a question and answer near the end. And there are some slides that have a lot of content. Don't worry, I will go back and leave that on if people have questions. So I am so honored to be meeting some of my future alumni. So I think that's really one of the bigger benefits I found doing my MBA from Sauder. So happy to meet everybody. Let me just move the slide. So a little bit about me, been doing it. I mean, I've been graduated almost 30 years ago, 1990s, when I got my MBA from Sauder, and I have a biochemistry undergrad. And my other business partners with Go Recruitment are also Sauder alumni. They're 1 year behind me. So obviously, I'm a big fan of Sauder's MBA. In addition to the kind of doing recruitment and for technology and education sector, I also dabble a little bit in angel investing in a couple of tech companies. I've done okay, not great, but I've done well enough in the past where some of the companies, like 1 out of 10, they do exit, and it's exit enough to get me a new car. Nothing that I can retire on. So more about that maybe later on. So currently I do recruitment, but I also do a lot of advising. So companies like Catalyst Agents, the owner actually is a Sauder BCom alumni, and SoftServe. SoftServe is a technology company doing assessments for hiring soft skills for companies. And I also do a lot of work with Mary, who's on the panel today at the BCC, where I do mock interviews and prepare some of you who will be graduating soon, well, when you finish the program, and they'll be preparing you for the interview process. So I like to sort of help out and give back that way. And last sort of advertorial would be our recruitment model is a little bit different. So what that means by different is we actually sit inside the companies we work with. So at any given moment, I probably personally have 9 to 10 companies that I work with on a part-time basis. So by being on the inside, I think I have a really good idea of what the culture is like. So I think it ultimately leads to a better match, right? So a little bit about myself. So my hope to you, I always say 3 things. I hope you guys all come away with some new information, some new ideas or concepts that you can take forward and apply it, and hopefully meet someone new. So I think we've already accomplished 1, right? Because you met me and someone new. And I also want to emphasize that coming to Vancouver is a great decision. I am biased because I've been here since I was grade 7. My parents were immigrants from Hong Kong, and my dad had a senior marketing role for a major tobacco company in Hong Kong. And when he came here, he bagged groceries. He also sprayed rust proofing under cars. So I just admire and respect my dad so much from starting from scratch. And then he's retired now. So that hard work ethic really was ingrained in me very early. And today my wife works as a financial analyst for RBC Asset Management, and my daughter's a research scientist at Accelera, so an upcoming biotech company working on the COVID vaccine, actually. So anyway, so we're going to talk about how to maximize your investment in the MBA here in Vancouver. And finally, I'm going to encourage all of you to connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay, so we can go back to this slide. So like I said, Vancouver, great choice. I'm biased, but doesn't matter. I think it's a great choice that you've all decided to make a decision in Vancouver. And I think from the poll that you will receive, I think 80% of you, 80% plus, are going to stay in Vancouver. Either some of you will pursue graduate work. Congratulations on that. And some of them will be working in companies that you and I may end up working with together. So I'm going to cover mostly about what to expect in the Vancouver job market, right? What's it like? And I saw a lot of questions in the chat about what are some of the companies that are hiring, and I'll talk to you about what to expect about that. The value of the Sauder MBA is priceless, and I'm going backwards a little bit here. What I mean by pivot and prosper in a pandemic, because we are in the pandemic and there is crises going on, I'm going to talk about my career briefly and the toolbox that came out of it on how to actually thrive and survive during these difficult times. And then finally, your takeaway is, okay, after this phone call, when you get your admission, what can you do now before you actually start your MBA? There is actually a lot of time potentially before you start. So what can you do now? And then I'll open up to Q&A. So Andrew, I think you can help me run this a little bit. I have a poll question. How does everybody feel about the future? I'll give you 30 seconds to answer. I think everybody, oh, that was fast. 10 seconds, 5 more seconds. I'm going to cut it off at 15. Do I just press the end polling and then we're done? Is that right, Andrew?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, okay. Great. So what I saw, 68% of you are very optimistic about the future. There's a small percentage pessimistic, and there's some who are uncertain, right? So basically 70-30, either very optimistic or perhaps uncertain. Very, very normal. I've seen this quite a lot of times. So I'm just gonna share that. The reason I mention this is I want to mention Canada and Vancouver. So this is a very typical economic graph. So the point of this, if you look at it, is in the last 30 years that I've been graduated and working in the economy and being in business, there's been 3 dips in our economy in Canada. So I think I've been very fortunate that even though there's all these great global crises going on, I haven't really felt it except there's 3 times, right? So we are very fortunate to be in Canada. We didn't have those wild swings in some of the other economies. So this is just proof that we are in a good spot. And I'll go a little bit deeper into about that shortly. So speaking of global crisis that we are in, maybe Andrew, you can run this poll. How many global events have you lived through? When I say events, could be big ones. Let's see here. Interesting. Okay, 5 more seconds. Okay. As I see the answers come in, I can tell that most of us who are on this call are people who have worked, right? I guess probably 5, 6, 7 years, because it looks like it's a 50-50. Some of you have lived through 1, and half of you have lived through 3. Right. So I have a digression slightly. You know, the word crises in Chinese is actually made up of 2 characters. One side is actually called danger, and the other one is opportunity. So it's really how you attribute a crisis and how you react to it can actually determine what happens when we are, done that crisis. And then the reason I mention that is kind of my next slide. So I've gone through these. Now, some of them are very memorable. Some of you may not remember Y2K or what is that. So I've gone through 7. And this is a long slide, and I will leave this slide later on. This is how, if I look back, how I was able to thrive and survive during all these global events or crises. So I guess I lived the value of making sure I didn't overreact when there's danger. And actually, when there is danger, I can see how I created an opportunity instead. Right. So the biggest takeaway, I think, relevant for this crowd is when I went back to get my CPA, CMA during an economic slowdown, because I really felt that was the best time to do a part-time program. So you guys are doing the right thing, right? Education during these times, I think, is the best thing that you can do to invest in yourself. So I'm going to come back to this slide later on. So don't worry about having to write everything down. There's a lot of useful, very meaty things here. And things I even mentioned. This is kind of the payoff of attending today's conference. So second topic, we're going to talk about the Sauder MBA. Companies in Vancouver value it. They know it. It's a really good curriculum. If you do a LinkedIn search of all the alumni from Sauder, you'll see that they're working at many of those companies that Zam mentioned earlier, plus others that I will briefly touch on. And the reason it's such a good program, it is globally portable. So not only do you get a global perspective, but after you graduate, if some of you do end up leaving Vancouver, well, why would you do that, right? And if some of you end up leaving Vancouver, it is actually globally portable. So the curriculum, alumni, the relationships that you build will help you in your next job, wherever that may be. And I do have some examples on my next slide that I wanted to feature, talk about some of the people I have actually placed. So these are some of the locations of people where they come from before their MBA and after the MBA, end up placing them, right? They're all across Canada, different parts of Latin America, Peru, Colombia, and Brazil are the Latin American countries. A couple of Japanese people, Israel, and Ireland. Those are some of the recent ones. And do you remember that slide that Zah showed you about some of the roles? Well, it looked like he stole it from me. What I mean by that is the roles that I have placed MBA graduates are the following 4, product managers, BAs, finance, and marketing. Those are the roles that typical companies I work with will hire you for. Okay. This is getting meatier. So what are some of the insights? What can you expect when you graduate, or even what you should do now before you enter your program. So we all know Vancouver, well, maybe I shouldn't assume. We all know Vancouver is a global city. We have lots of diversity. Diversity could be even like the different types of restaurants. We have all nationalities, all ethnicity here. But the two things I wanted to mention, particularly important, is companies are investing here of large and small. And there is still a migration of talented people coming to the city. So these two events is building up the city to be not just a global hub, but we have a really growing pool of talented people with many different experiences from all over the world. And while technology is a big focus of what I'm going to talk about today, it isn't a bad thing to be known as a tech city, because there are jobs beyond tech, inside tech, if that makes sense. Right? So actually, let me go back for a sec here. So when I say companies are investing, and you know what, sorry, let me go to the next slide because I do want to emphasize this. So I'll just spend a brief moment on to explain the model up top. So many of you can see what I have here, seed, startup, sale, and it's a cycle. So that's just a very typical model of how a company starts as a startup, then they grow, potentially they go for a sale, and when they sell, the owners get a lot of money and they end up seeding the next round of companies. So this cycle, this triangle happens in Vancouver quite a bit. We're actually, I think, known as a startup city, and a lot of companies come in and buy our technology, buy our market share, buy our customers. So this cycle happens a lot. But there's an advantage of being where we are. So our proximity to Seattle, San Fran, and really good schools actually fuels this cycle. So this cycle happens a lot in Vancouver. So some of the companies that Josh showed, like SAP, was acquired, Business Objects, who acquired Crystal Services. So those companies prior to SAP were started here. Electronic Arts is here. They bought a company back in the late 80s. Salesforce is here because they recently also purchased Mobilify, but they were already here before. So we're attracting a lot of companies that come up and buy startups, and it feeds a sort of this cycle. So that's another reason why this is a good place to be. So what about the tech market? So when I started 30 years ago, it was small. Today, it's grown, and it isn't necessarily the big. It's not Silicon Valley. It's not Toronto. But I would argue that you don't have to be big to be the best. We have a certain identity, which is rapidly growing technology companies. And that's really exciting. And because there's also money comes in to sort of seed those ideas. So today we have about 150,000 people working in tech, and not that many large companies. If you do the math here, 150,000 people, 10,000 companies, you can see that the average size of a company here is 150, if I did my math right. And there are lots of global brands like Amazon, of course, Microsoft, SAP. There's others I can sort of mention down the road. And the growth is very encouraging. So if you do a LinkedIn search, or you go to We Are Tech BC, the source there I put here, you can see there are about 7,000 new jobs per year, and it's growing, right? So the Vancouver tech market is the place to be. And now the question becomes, well, are you only going to talk about tech, Raymond, right? What is it about tech that you love so much besides the innovation? So the next slide may touch a little bit on that. So before I answer that question, these are just some of the companies I've worked with in the last 12 months who have moved their operation to Vancouver, and or they've come in to buy companies. So Macro Health, just sort of feature a few. Macro Health was actually started out of Seattle. They've come here, raised about $20 to $30 million, and now they have a data science team of about 30 people. SoftServe, 2 founders from the Valley, and now they're growing here. Parallel Domain came from the gaming industry, and they're growing a team here. And I'll go down the list. I mentioned Troy DeFrank from the Provincial Trade Commission. He's the one that tells me that he's getting about 1 inquiry a week. He's based out of Seattle. So once a week, he's getting an inquiry from a company, either to set up an office here or to diversify their operations. They are all thinking Vancouver. So he's busy, and he's giving me these leads of companies that are coming here. They're not necessarily big like Amazon, but there's a lot of small ones coming here. And on the right-hand side, you'll see some of the companies recently in the last 12 months, except Mobidia, they were actually sold or purchased. Right? So going back to my other comment about, is tech it? Yes, right? Because you want tech companies because they are growing, they have lots of innovation, they could change the world. but there are also non-tech opportunities in tech. So if you search these two websites like bctechnology.com or LinkedIn, of course, you'll see that there are advertising roles that are very suitable for all of you in the audience here, right? So you'll finish your MBA and then hopefully you can apply to any of these product management roles, BA roles, or customer success and sales. So don't think that tech means you have to be a programmer. And even though most of the incoming class, I recall from the stats, are either engineering or comp sci or science, it may be suitable, but you don't necessarily have to apply to those roles. So last topic, what can you all do now? Zah, question to you. Do they, if they do get accepted, they have about 10 months before they start?
It really depends. It really depends when they've applied and when throughout the pipeline they have. It could be as much as that, or it could even be a shorter window, right?
Okay. So all of you, I saw some of the QA and A questions of how does COVID impact that? I guess Mary and others can address that. But my advice to everybody is there is something you can do now. So reach out and connect to the alumni. Take advantage of Sauder's BCC. There are lots of courses there that you can sort of get involved with. But mostly put yourself out there, volunteer, get connected to people in the community. Tell them that, hey, I'm going to be starting my MBA soon, whatever date that is. I would like to sort of help out. There's lots of meetups that people need volunteer for. So all these meetups right now are doing virtual events. So anything to get your name. Vancouver is still a small town in many ways. It is a little bit who you know in a positive way. It doesn't mean it's a small boys club. It just means that people are very helpful. So if you tell them you need some help, you want to get connected, they'll be more than willing to help. So there are many things you can do now before you start to get yourself ingrained in the community, right? So here are some more resources. I mentioned earlier, we are BC Tech. That's the industry association that has lots of news talking about contracts, product development, acquisitions, funding. So We Are Tech BC have lots of news that all of you can follow. Ready to Rocket is an interesting one. So Ready to Rocket is actually a marketing company. And what they do every year is they actually research companies that could be the next big thing in Vancouver. So our company is a sponsor of that research report. And it's actually really cool. If you sort of look retroactively and see who they predicted would be big, a lot of it came true, right? So Ready to Rocket is really just your insights into which companies are the big ones of the future in Vancouver. And of course, the provincial government has a big initiative to making sure that companies are aware of the opportunities to invest in BC. So that's also a great website. One last thing, I mentioned that you can invite to connect on LinkedIn with me. I ask that you first listen to my podcast. There's another benefit to listening to this podcast. There's about 20 interviews that I've done with different CTOs, CFOs, CEOs of companies in Vancouver. So you get to hear their voice, hear them talk about the culture, hear them talk about what they're looking for. So you can actually listen at your own free time. And I just ask that you listen to one. And once you heard one, send me an invite to connect. And then that way you have a better idea of what to expect here in Vancouver. So that is it. Hopefully I didn't speak too fast. I wanted to save some time for questions.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much, Raymond. Wanted to open it up for some questions here for you to get some, in case there's anything that you needed to address. Mary Cowan from the BCC's here as well, our Business Career Center. So they work part and parcel with you as well in terms of providing that career support that you will need going forward. So yeah, if there are any questions, please feel free. Raymond, can you
stop sharing?
Yeah, that'd be great. Just so I can.
Okay. Bear with me here.
No problem.
How's that?
There we go. Okay. So let's see what we can find here. There's a couple of questions.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. There's some in the chat and some in the Q&A.
Yeah, so I'm just going to read this one out to you, Mary. I have over 10 years of full-time experience and 7 years of it from a field of corporate finance in Hong Kong. It is not easy to find a related job in the Vancouver market. I see that some MBA grads could get entry roles in the corporate finance industry in Canada. I believe the training and networking from the MBA program is valuable, but what are the career prospects in the relevant field in Vancouver? So a little bit of anxiety there in terms of corporate finance and as it relates to Vancouver.
I think what I would say to start with is it's good to know a little bit more about, you and where you come from and what your corporate finance background looks like and where you gained it. And that will help us understand, what types of organizations might be a more natural fit, what might be a place that would be interested. I think overall, your ability to build a network and build community here will always help in, paving the path to your ultimate goal. Have I seen many students with a corporate finance background go into corporate finance, so more of a lateral move or I would say a career enhancer, somebody who wants to use their same skill set, enhance it with the MBA, and then go back with the same type of goal? Absolutely. And we see those sorts of stories all the time. So it's hard to be super explicit for you, but I would say that you're not the first to go down that path, and that there'd probably be, alumni we could connect you with, and the community at large. The Sauder community at large is super helpful in wanting to help prospective and current students understand what makes sense for them and their own decisions. And then you ultimately get that information so you make the right decision for you.
Excellent. I've been getting a lot of questions in and around sort of our internship. How is that playing out right now? What does it look like? Those parts of the BCC offerings that people are attracted to, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything you could say in that regard in terms of what's going on the ground right now for those attendees who would be interested?
Yeah, I think what I can say is that what was interesting about this summer, although it was a bit of a slow start, given that sort of that March to May window, which is typically when students are getting and securing their internships, there was some reluctance on the part of the market to step up and say, we don't really know what we're doing ourselves, so to bring somebody new in might be a challenge. So can we just postpone, or can we wait and see? The good news is at the end, they did come forward. Many of those organizations that sort of put a bit of a slow stop on things came back after sort of May, June. And we had students who started in May, in June, and is actually as late as July 5th, I think, who did do their internships this year, those that wanted internships. Not everyone does, it's not for everybody. But those students that were looking for internships, the majority, I'm going to say, I think 90-ish% found them, and were able to finish the internship in time to get the credit for their summer experience. So that it's BA 512, or your summer experience opportunity. So we've had, and in fact, when we look at that 2020 summer compared to 2019 summer, the statistics of those students who found internships was actually higher. So there's definitely some good news there. They might have been a bit shorter, and they might not have been paid at maybe the level that they would have been in the past, but they did get that experience. And I know for many students internationally, that's a really key point, that they want to get some opportunity to work here in the Canadian market and build out a new network and build out Canadian references. So I'm happy to say that there was lots of good news by the end of the summer.
Great, great. And Raymond, over to you. I just wanted to get a little bit more insight into, I get a lot of questions from applicants or prospective applicants, and you've done a really good job in giving us a little bit of an insight into Vancouver and kind of what to expect and the culture and the community and so on. Is there anything else that you feel that they should know? So I'm going to pose this question to you. So
Sure.
Think of yourself back when you just were thinking of applying for an MBA. If you could go back and see yourself, what would you tell yourself at that point right now, knowing what you know about Vancouver and about working life in Canada? What advice could you give to someone who's in the position where, they don't even know Canada, for example, but they're interested in doing this MBA and pursuing their career over here? What would you tell yourself if you could go back?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, yeah, if I was looking back, just how is there an ability? I would have recommend to myself, connect yourself with the business community. So do whatever you can, volunteer, get to know who are the major companies or the fast growing ones. And because we have so much information at our disposal, back then I had to leaf through phone books and yellow pages, right? So that's how old I am. So now with Google and LinkedIn, I think that advice would apply today would be make sure you reach out and really make an effort to connect with people in Vancouver, business people, especially if you're going to be in a business career. Some people may go into nonprofits or the health authorities. So obviously research and connect in that realm as well. So that was one thing I didn't do well. I had to sort of struggle and bump my way. So really, it would have shortened my time to sort of get established, I think, if I had done that earlier.
Okay. Any particular trends that you see in terms of the market right now?
Remote working, I think that's kind of popular. So I'm seeing companies, because most of their staff, current staff, are working from home. They're now thinking part of the idea to invest in Vancouver is, well, we can actually easily manage a small team there because we're already managing a team in the Valley. So that is probably going to increase more. So that may represent maybe a remote opportunity. I had a theory that maybe some of our audience members can actually start reaching out and offer to do some sort of consulting projects before they arrive. That's another way they can connect with the local community, because the companies are already mindful or prepared to manage remote talent. So that might be an opportunity. I'm not sure, haven't seen it really big, but I think that could be a thinking that some of the companies are having.
And in terms of the UBC MBA, I just wanted to say as well that, obviously some of the steps they can take is they can reach out to us, myself, Natalie, or Vivian, depending on the program that they're interested in, set up coffee chats and advising sessions, properly give you some information and to get a window into the school that maybe you wouldn't necessarily get on the website. So we do offer quite a wide, we have some resources on our website, and we have these advising sessions as well. So that's another way for them to really prepare themselves for coming over here.
Agreed. Yeah. That's good advice. Yes, you guys are awesome to work with. So.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, I wanted to pose this to both of you actually, because I do get a lot of, not a lot, but there is interest in differentiating us in Western Canada here on the Pacific Coast as to, the bigger city that we all know about. What would you say, and I know you spoke a little bit about this as well, but I really kind of want to position this in terms of people who, obviously they're looking at a destination that's going to serve them well, that they're going to thrive both academically and post-MBA. What would you say are some of the particular things that Vancouver would offer as opposed to those other locations? I know we touched on this a little bit, but trying to see if we could get,
understand. Yeah. You want Mary to go first or I go first?
I'm happy to say, and I wrote this in one of the questions, is that there's many students who decide to do their MBA in Vancouver, and I can't hide the fact that it has a lot to do with being a beautiful city with more temperate weather and having a lot going for it. It's a smaller cohort than some of the other programs elsewhere. It's got a very personalized feel to it. So there's lots of reasons to do that. And, that's probably why you're on this call. We've piqued your interest. Does that mean that you're going to stay in Vancouver for the long term? Maybe not. And there's a very strong alumni network in Central Canada. So when people decide they want to go east or somewhere else in the country, those opportunities are there. This past year, there was quite a few students who left the Vancouver market to go to, I'll say, the GTA primarily. And that was their choice. And there's lots of opportunity there too. often they'll go to Toronto for maybe a short time and then move back to Vancouver, where they have a community of people and friends and, you know, former MBA colleagues that didn't leave the city who are here to come back to. So, you know, by choosing Sauder for your degree does not limit you to wanting to, you know, start your career post MBA in a different market. And I would say that we've seen that in Calgary, we've seen that in Winnipeg, Ottawa, Toronto, like lots of places.
Yeah, definitely would echo that. And I would say another twist on that would be, since you're already investing a lot of time and energy doing a very demanding program, it certainly helps that you're doing it in Vancouver versus, say, somewhere cold like Calgary, Winnipeg. Anyway, so not to slight those organizations. So if you're already going to do a tough program, why not do it in a beautiful place? That's kind of the funny. But earlier when I mentioned that our proximity to the valley, the whole Pacific Northwest and Cascadia, I know companies decide on Vancouver, not just because we have talent here, but the practical of time zones and how easy it is to sort of work with someone in the same time zone versus someone in Toronto. So that's another benefit of being here, the connections you make with Seattle companies and San Fran, because there is a movement, a migration of people back and forth. Like you said, Mary, they may graduate, they work a couple of years in San Fran, and they decide to raise a small family. They don't like living in San Francisco or the Bay Area, and they come back. So Vancouver's always had a draw for a lot of people to come back at different stages in their life, but the MBA set them up for that job down in San Fran. So it is globally portable.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I've got two more questions for you guys here. Which are companies hiring for transaction advisory roles?
Yeah, I saw that. Do they mean investment banking, brokering, probably IB type of work?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that what we see for people in transaction and advisory, I would say that there are some small private equity companies here. There's some boutique firms for sure. That many of those firms are smaller than what you would find in the big chartered banks, and a lot of those IB roles are going to be more in the bigger markets, so Toronto namely, and then Calgary for sort of regional. But it really depends on your experience as well, because you may have a certain experience that aligns well with your MBA, and I've seen students now, alumni, go through the program because they came with a mining background, for example, and that was a space that was very much aligned with the Vancouver market. So they were able to find their way here. So there's no quick answer to that, because I think it really depends on where you are, what you've done in the past, and what you do within the program and where you enhance your skills.
And I've got another one. It looks like another Mary question. What type of networking events do you traditionally hold for MBA students pre-COVID?
We run a number of different of alumni events, in particular, events where we bring alumni. We do one early in the autumn, which is sort of our early alumni event, where we bring people who have left the program sort of in the last 2 to 5 years. It's a very friendly room where they remember walking in your steps, and they remember what it was like to be, new in the market, potentially new in BC. And so that event happens typically in the early autumn. We run a bigger event later in the spring. We do one sort of employer-facing networking event where they happen to be often alumni as well as employers who are in the market to hire potentially, typically summer, but sometimes full-time hires as well. That's usually early part of the new year. If your program starts in September, we usually run that in January. So there's a number of things that happen sort of on an annual basis. Through COVID, we've really switched things up and had to change things. And what's been really nice about this is we've done a number of virtual networking sessions. And what it allows us to do is bring people from further afield. So maybe people that weren't or easily accessible to the downtown core, or don't want to commute downtown at 5 o'clock in the evening. We found that by running those virtual networking events, and we did, I think, 5 of them over the last sort of, I'm going to say 5-6 months, probably through May till now, they tended to have like a theme around the functional areas. So they might have been focused on entrepreneurship, or they might have been focused on consulting and or product management. And so what we found is that people were, sort of dialing in from across the country, from south of the border, even from Abbotsford. So it was really nice to have that opportunity to bring that alumni community together and have them be able to share their expertise as well. So we're nimble, we are all adapting to our new world, and those are things that we seem to have done well, and we seem to have had lots of interest and the student feedback, although I think it's fair to say originally they were concerned about being in a virtual breakout room. What they found is that it was really intimate, and they got to know a lot really quickly, better than being in a live event. So that was kind of nice to hear that it was actually a really productive time.
That's great. That's great. So yeah, I think we're rounding out. I don't see any other questions coming.
There's someone about what's MBB. Maybe I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that's referring to.
Okay.
There's another one here in terms of
MBB is referring to consulting. I didn't see that question. So if it's MBB is usually referring to the McKinsey Boston Bain consulting space.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. That was the context of it.
So can you read out the question? I don't see where that question is. Is that new?
I can't see that question anymore, actually.
Okay.
It disappeared. It must have been answered, I suppose.
Maybe. I would say that if the question is, does MBB hire through SOTA, the quick answer is yes. And that we have a number of alumni that have gone to either McKinsey, Bain, and Boston. A student from 2020, is actually with Boston Consulting Group in Calgary now. And McKinsey has quite a bit of presence and a lot of alumni in their Vancouver office, obviously, as well as Calgary and Toronto. So definitely some of our partners.
There's a question about someone saying they have 10 years experience.
Yeah, I saw that. I was just about to read that to you, actually.
I have a giggle, right? I go, 10 years. Wow, that person's young. So, because I think the tone of that question is like, what is it? I understand MBAs tend to be younger and junior roles are more abundant.
Right.
I haven't seen that case, so that's not necessarily, it's pretty equally distributed. If I have an anecdotal response to that, it would be that 10 years to 15 years is kind of a sweet spot for many companies. Because you've been around, you made some mistakes, you probably progressed up an organization. So that 10, 15 years is often a sweet spot for product management roles, for example. So it's actually an advantage, as opposed to, I'm reading in between the lines here, there's kind of a tone that maybe I have too much experience, but no, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, the average, as you said at the beginning, for our program is 6 years. So there's definitely a number of students who are on the higher side of that. In every cohort, there's definitely a number of students who have 8, 10, 12 years of experience, and those that are younger. And so that combination and that diversity in your student groups is what makes it such a robust experience.
Mm-hmm. And how do you guys feel about international students in terms of, not having the Canadian work experience? Do you see that as an obstacle for them to overcome in terms of securing work post MBA?
We haven't seen that. We have not seen that students with an international background are at a competitive disadvantage with our domestic students. I think that when we look at our employment stats, you see the entire cohort, finding their way. I think those students that might struggle with, finding their first role post MBA, it's not typically that they're international or their experiences from abroad. It might be that they haven't spent the time building a community or a network here. And that could go for our domestic students as well. So what we see in terms of the numbers of students finding employment is that there doesn't seem to be any marked difference in being international versus domestic. And I think, for everybody who comes into the program, the best part of the program is your cohort. So getting to know each other and building that community there first will allow you to, you know, build off your momentum and create contacts and create a community so that when you're ready to go out into that market, you're not starting from scratch. You've already got momentum. You feel like this is where you want to be and that you're ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And would either you know sort of mentor programs for MBA?
I was just going to say that because I see Rodrigo's also asked about SCMP. So I was going to talk about all our mentor programs. So it's a nice way to get connected. Again, learn from others, build community. We do run a number of different programs in the MBA that is run by the Harry B. Varshney Career Center. There's one program, just because I mentioned MBB a minute ago, which is the consulting space. And it's specifically the strategic management consulting space. There is a program that's run by alumni of the Sauder School of Business, so not specific just to MBA, but BComs, PhDs, MMs, MBAs, and they run a program for those people who are specifically interested in that strategic management consulting space. And it's one by application. It's one that you would apply. You would hear lots about it before you start the program, so you know. And it's run extracurricularly, so it runs alongside your academic program, and one that you would have to dedicate time to on your weekends while you're in class. Another program that we run for those who are interested in product management, for example, our product management training program is one that we run within the Career Center. And so that's, gives opportunity for people to do workshops, have advising meetings with people who are product managers in our local market. They tend to be primarily based in the Vancouver market, but there are some, again in Seattle and Toronto. So we do have, a few different programs. They're iterating a little bit at the moment just with COVID, but rest assured there's a number of different programs. Again, almost all are through an application process. And the feedback we get from those, that opportunity to partner with somebody and hear from their experience over a longer period of time is one that's really respected, and one that students come back to and say, I'm really, really glad I did that.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. Let's see what else we have here. I don't see anything else that's out of, yeah. So Raymond, I think it would be a really good time for us just to hit those points briefly in that slide, just before we sign off here, just to re-emphasize those key points of steps that they can take in anticipation of coming to Vancouver.
Okay. You want me to just speak to that?
Yeah, you can just sort of reiterate them. We don't really need a slide or anything, but you can just sort of hit those points again, so they're fresh in everybody's mind as we go forward.
Yeah, that's such a good. So definitely leverage the BCC, the resources, the counselors, everyone on this call. Reach out to alumni. Very easy to find us, right, on LinkedIn. And not everyone will accept, but you just need one or two and it will mushroom and go viral, so to speak, for you. So if you're a candidate, want to get connected with the Vancouver market, just reach out to alumni, introduce yourself, tell them what you would like. Be very upfront. Vancouver as a culture, as a city, very helpful. I've worked in other cities, maybe not as much. So that goes to the sort of small yet global city kind of vibe that we have here. If you go to meetups.com and search for Vancouver meetups, I'm not saying you should attend them because you can't, but there's actually a lot of these are still happening virtually. So volunteer to help out, maybe recruit attendees or maybe promote the meetup. That will also get your name out there. There's lots of nonprofits, lots of fundraising organizations, doing fundraising this year, all doing it virtually. So probably volunteer to help out, right? And take some courses. I talked about, if there is some downtime for some of you, invest that time online through Sauder, take courses, that can't hurt to sort of learn something new.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I have one last question before we go, I promise, and that'll be it. Raymond, just one last question. What is the increase rate of tech jobs in Vancouver pre-COVID?
Like the rate?
I suppose the growth
Mhm.
rate or
Let's see.
pre-COVID, I don't know if anybody would have those stats right off the tip of your tongue, but
My research, so 7,000 divided by 150,000. That's the math. Because I see about 7,000 new jobs every year out of a pool of 150. That's just a 2019 stat.
was 7,000 out of 100.
50,000. So whenever I do that math, so that's been the growth rate of number of job postings I've seen in 2019 for the year. So that's a pretty big number, right? 7,000. So just subtract the, yeah.
Yeah, it's about 50%.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Raymond, for your time. Again, thank you, Mary, for your support. Much appreciated. I would like to thank everybody who participated today. Thank you for calling in from wherever in the world you happen to be. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day. We know there's a lot of information out there for you to digest, so very grateful for that. Deadline is tomorrow. And the upcoming deadline is in January 5th, 2021. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And thank you thank you very much. Stay healthy and stay safe. And warm greetings from the Sauder team. And have yourself a good rest of the evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.